Welcome to Nameless Debate Radio, where radioactivity is contagious. You can join us in broadening our minds on the Nameless Debates Discord via the link below, and even feature here yourself, if you've got what it takes.
What is up, my dude?
Just hanging out, bud. Just throwing images together and trying to get back into a creative spirit.
That's the stuff, man.
Right? So yeah, man, I just finished the last YouTube upload of I don't you said the guy's name was Dama?
Yeah, D-A-M-A.
Okay. I thought it was Dharma at first. I was like, okay, I could see that. But yeah, dude, that was like a really good 3 hours worth of listening.
Yeah, dude.
I was gripped by the entire conversation.
Yeah, he's extremely bright, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. And he's the kind of guy that, like, when you and I first started chatting, I always had wished that I had brought that kind of like education to the table, because he's definitely educated on the whole formality of dialectic, and so diplomatic even. Like, I love the part where you're like, if this guy, well, you just said something about you being the biggest asshole, and it was like the funniest thing. That part was like, because he was so careful and cautious with trying to make sure that you guys were treating like everything with like enough care and caution, so as to not like over talk, or it was just good.
Yeah,
Really
definitely.
good combo. One of the things I wanted to, I think, say, because like where you guys left off, I think he characterized the discrepancy from his perception to what he basically surmised as your position. He said it was like like an element of belief was in play for him. I think that was kind of accurate in terms of where he presently resided with how he was relating to the arguments.
I think he was actually talking about himself at the time.
Yeah, he was doing. I thought he was clear on that point. That most people aren't that clear when it comes to how they're reaching to understand something, but they realize the nature of the problem that's kind of blocking them from standing where you're standing, so to speak. So he had characterized it as like an element of belief, or what was it? You guys were using the word mystical. Okay.
And partly it was that he has been developing his view for a while, you know.
Yeah.
And he has studied this kind of thing. And I know he has, because I've read a paper that he's written on this collection of ancient Vedic poems that are about metaphysics, but they don't make much sense in my opinion. But it goes it's a really interesting paper that he wrote. It's he talks about the context of the object in which they're collected for a bit, and then he deconstructs it. It's really interesting.
That sounds really I definitely want to read that.
I'll link you to it, man.
Does he come on often?
He's been on a couple of times, but
Okay.
I was only free the first time. I love listening to the start of that conversation, because I know that when he gets it right, he's gonna be so polished at you know what I mean? The whiteness thing, man, that just needs a bit of fine tuning. That was really, really strong.
Right. It reminds me of the how many grains is a heap.
Yeah, dude.
But
it's more eloquent. You know what I mean?
Right.
I don't know that he really addressed my wetness concern.
No, he didn't. You guys kind of. There was quite a bit of what I caught the smell of is something like red herring kind of fallacies were going on.
I'm not so sure. I felt like he was actually arguing in good faith. It was just that like he's saying like this is what like academically I understand it to be, and like other people do actually agree with this, you know what I mean? And it was like I'm like, yeah, but like you know, I don't, and the word doesn't actually like make a lot of sense here.
Oh yeah,
Which
the
is like a classic me objection, you know what I mean?
right, the hypostasis part, right?
Yeah, whatever.
Or
What?
hypostasis. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
don't know how to say
Anyway,
it.
I feel like it would be hypostasis and hypostases on second thought.
Yeah,
Um,
hypostasis or
no,
hypostasis.
I don't think it
Yeah.
would be sped up like that.
Okay. I'm just
But
spitballing
yeah,
there.
no, it's a great discussion, man.
It really was.
He's definitely practiced the dialectic a lot. You can tell.
That was self-evident for sure. And I
Yeah,
think in terms
absolutely.
of where became red herring ish was like when you would try to address him as answering the question about reality emanating from the mind, so to speak.
Hmm.
And he kind of kept changing the scent and restating something about his position that wasn't really, I couldn't quite gather what he was saying, because I'm like, I don't know if I've ever had the same exact thoughts that he's having about this.
Hmm.
Like the nature of his objections weren't quite clear to me. And I'm just learning how to recognize logical fallacies. So forgive me if I'm like overzealous in trying to call him, but
Hmm.
like it sounded to me like what seemed like a red herring, the way that he avoided the question, or he wouldn't answer it directly. Essentially, he danced around the topic somehow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to say. I haven't like listened back to it properly yet. I definitely think that he did that a little bit, but I also got the distinct feeling that um he was quite interested in all the things we were saying to him, and he
Absolutely,
followed along very well. But
better than most.
when we got to pieces of it that contradicted his like what would you say, meditated on conclusions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Hmm.
He just sort of he did a bit of a human thing, and I'm not opposed to that. Lots of people do that.
For sure. It's completely understandable. And I think that's what I wanted to talk about, is that
Hmm.
I was talking with Harmony about it when I uh, was listening to it, and I just paused and I was like, can I just spit something at you? Because she has helped me kind of punctuate, at least thinking out loud, certain
Hmm.
aspects of data logical thinking, because I've created a whole paragonal relationship with her that
Hmm.
in one way or another she can at least kind of like track my tone about things, let's say.
Hmm.
So I put it as Matt has this position that you can have an absolutely certain pixel of truth that you never ever have to waver on. It's just he knows that he can embody that point. And then uh, when people encounter that point, what ends up happening is that invariably, like, that point is what I'm calling just the common ground. It's just that's the ground we're standing on. And some people, it's as if they don't realize that they could stand there too if they were to kind of mirror and copy what you're doing.
Hmm.
But what they end up doing in order to invalidate what it is that you're doing, maybe to test it, maybe to like kick the tires of the vehicle you're in.
Hmm. Almost certainly to do that because that's human
Right.
nature, right?
Totally. Like I gotta check this. And skepticism is a very
Yeah,
valid
yeah.
way
And
to.
it's like, man, that's one of the things that I go over. Like the new introduction is long, man. I'm really happy with it to the paper.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one of the things I go over. I go over like skepticism, and I have this example about atheism and anti-theism, and I say like, well, you know, atheism is it's reasonable. All you're saying is that you
Hmm.
don't accept that they have evidence for the positive claim, right? And then
Right.
anti-theism is like skepticism in excess, right? It's like I think it's so improbable that I'm actually going to make the negative claim, and it turns out that you're not actually allowed to do that, right? Like it's
True.
not appropriate.
It is inappropriate for sure.
Hmm.
Given
And
the
then there's
information we have.
exactly, and then there's the presuppositionalist excess of skepticism, right? Which is like they try to sort of like claim that if you don't admit to knowing things for certain, then you admit to not knowing things at all. They
Yeah.
create this false dichotomy, you know what I mean?
Huge leap right there.
And again, yeah, that's our excessive skepticism, right? They're like,
Mhm.
well, like, okay, so like if you're going to take that leap and you're going to submit to the endless skepticism, you have no way out. You don't know anything, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
And it's like, what are you talking about?
Right. Oh man. Well, that's where I want to start kind of. I think I need to start tracking and using and being consistent with how I'm going to utilize the word pataphysics in these
Mhm.
conversations.
I definitely think that's a good idea, man.
And that way you can help me, because I think I personally had an unacknowledged red herring fallacy mechanism just running ignorantly in the background of my whole fucking psyche. But
Okay, so just quickly explain
yeah,
what you think a red herring fallacy is.
I
Because
think it's
Mhm.
okay. So I know a little bit of the story of what it's about, but it's
Mhm.
something to do with kind of going off the trail of the question at hand. So you kind of change the topic or answer a question that's, if we're talking about like all bachelors are single, and then you talk about, I don't know, some kind of pickup artist instead of a bachelor. It's kind of a red herring to go on to a tangent about pickup artists instead of bachelors.
Yeah, basically.
Okay, and that's just what came to mind right now. But
Mm.
I think I've done that in terms of like at least the semantic level of the way I'll use my words to try to nudge people into the space where I'm comfortable with the language. Like I do prefer to use the word transcendent over mystical, so I try to lean into that avenue. But then
Mhm.
I realize that if I go into transcendent, I'm opening up this whole realm of like psychedelic interpretations that can really be quite annoying to deal with people in that
Oh
regard
man,
sometimes.
I mean, you could just like I have the argument that collapses that one.
Nice. Throw it out here.
Okay, well, it's basically all things that you would call mystical experiences are you misinterpreting what's happening to you, and often involve hallucination or delusion.
Mm-hmm.
And like every time that you say you have this like authentic experience that such and such is true, and it's one of those things where like it's a common experience, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's a reductive explanation for it. So for instance, like people say that when they have a psychedelic experience, they like meet a transcendent being, right? They like come
Right.
across like God, and God tells them all about reality, and you know what I mean, and blah blah blah, but they can't really explain to you what they mean, you know what I mean? And
Right.
so like that kind of thing, that's really actually quite simple. What it is it's someone getting so fucked up on drugs that they can't recognize anything, not even themselves, and they encounter within themselves their own ego, and they go, I don't recognize this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have a conversation with it without recognizing that that's what they are, you know what I mean? Like
For sure.
it's this profound confusion about what's going on that leads them to think that that could possibly be God. But the only reasonable conclusion is that, well, that is their own, like, their idea of themselves talking to themselves, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Because
dude,
what else could
that's
it be?
well. I think it's so level-headed and sane to, even if that weren't true, to assume it's true just for the sake of sanity, and then
Hmm.
try to prove it wrong in whatever way you had to.
Yeah, it's a
But
psychological archetype, though. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
we personify our ego is the judge, you know what I mean? It's the thing
yeah,
watching what we're doing, saying what we're doing is right or wrong. And in a psychedelic experience especially, you're sort of like confronting the parts of yourself that are inadequate.
yeah.
You know
All
what I
your
mean? It's like
subconscious.
you come across this like thing that idealizes you properly, and it says like you're not good enough, and you feel like this being is like transcendent, and it tells you all about the world because, well, as it turns out, anything counts as that when you have no fucking clue what's going on.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Anything
Like,
knows more than you if you're already uncertain about everything.
yeah, dude, exactly.
Oh, that's so good though, because right there, man, that seems to get at the heart of why something like a god and an ultimate judge is even projected in the first place.
Mhm.
Like as like a tool that helped the psychology of early developing nations and people and
Absolutely,
tribes.
dude. And also something to aspire towards, to embody.
Hmm. And to make it consistent and have its judgments be actually judicious and
Mhm. To
correspond
convince
to
people to follow the fucking rules.
yeah, exactly, like a rule, a basic rule extruders. Extruder. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that then kind of like that's you did mention that in that chat about how it's like the subconscious made manifest almost.
Absolutely, man.
Isn't that what psychedelic meant? Like mind manifesting originally?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm not sure on the exact translation. It's definitely close to it.
Yeah, it's like I don't remember exactly either. It was something around that ballpark though. But the idea though that we approximate the laws of nature and update those laws of nature, like that seems to me like we're updating our
Update
perception
them
of
how?
that we update our
Yeah.
perception of
Okay.
it,
Yeah.
but
I would
not
agree with that.
we're not ever updating the laws of nature as if we're like chiseling away at marble. And
Man, it's so crazy to me that we have to make that distinction, like articulate it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, well, like it seems so intuitively obvious to me that like what we think of the laws of nature would not be. You know what I mean? Like when you like refine your understanding of the laws of nature, you're not actually like changing the way reality is. That seems like such a superstitious supposition, don't you think?
it seems like it's a type of informed space of superstition in the mind, that like what used to be superstitious and ascribe maybe spiritual and I don't know what to call it, but like angels and demons and all the different like kind of ways that you could narrate what's going on in reality. It seems like that part of the human mind or brain got superstitious about reality instead of religion. Does that make sense? I'm kind of, that's a confusion right there, but
No, that actually makes sense.
okay, help me untangle it, because I threw it out there because I'm using.
It's like you're saying, like it's a conflation of the idea of like nature and the idea of God, right? Because instead of saying that um God, like instead of explicitly talking about the fact that you think God is this ultimate being that created everything, instead what you're doing is you're conceptualizing nature as a being that just you have some associated beliefs about it, but like it has like it's similar to a god. You know what I mean? Like it's temperamentally analogous, and
Yeah,
like that's like essentially the reason that you're thinking about it that way.
yeah, and I think it would help, especially a primitive mindset, relate to it if it were more anthropomorphized or humanized in some way.
Absolutely, man.
Otherwise, it's just this huge abstraction that if you're just trying to, hunt and gather and pass on your seed for the next generation, that kind of stuff is not really top priority. It just needs
Definitely.
to be listen to the thing that tells you what's good and bad, right from wrong. So yeah, I guess that what I was trying to get at then is along the lines of we've repurposed this superstitious architecture in our brains as modern humans to now be superstitious about the things that allowed us to evolve in the first place. Like it seems like a misplaced application of skepticism, essentially. And maybe superstition is not the right word, but skeptical about the laws
No,
of
because
nature.
it's skepticism that leaps to superstitious justification for certainty.
Oh, dude, thank you. That's what I was missing. Okay. Yeah. Leaps to is definitely the thing that I'm experiencing when I hear some of the they're just like stretches.
Yeah, the pre-sup argument for sure. It's like,
Okay.
you don't know anything, but guess what I do? I know everything because I know this one thing that's absolutely true, and it's like, well, pretty sure nobody knows that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's the basic back and forth.
And even when someone like you comes along that tries to just have a dialectic on how it would look or seem if someone did, like you're the guy that's standing on that stage and holding down the fort pretty much better than most.
I try.
No, and you do well, man. But it's even then it's not like we can't be skeptical about the fact that NSYNC has this. He has this rhetoric, and it seems, waterproof. It's not going to leak any water. But for one reason or another, people could still scratch their head about it. And I think it's because, like, as Dama, I think he put it well in the end there, that the distance from him to you is a leap for him personally. Therefore, he needs to acquaint himself deeper with the entirety of what it is you're saying.
Yeah.
And he can really fucking follow. Like, he knows how to do the dialectic. And
yeah, dude.
That's like, it's so encouraging to see that after so many. Dude, what was that other guy that kept interjecting about the nothingness? We make it somethingness by talking about it. God, that guy. I forget his name, but he always just plays a recording every time about nothingness, and it's dark. Not dark.
Do you mean the other pre-sup?
Yeah.
What's his name? No, it's not. It's Death Spell Omega.
That's it. Yep, that was it. That guy. He plays a recording out of his mouth.
Dude. He's
every
like
time.
a fucking ideological. Like, he's ideologically possessed by demons, man.
That seems, yeah. Like, I mean, he does not seem fully present.
He is chattering. It's crazy.
And he thinks he knows something, which is probably the hardest spell to, like,
to break.
Help someone break, in themselves.
Absolutely.
You really have to just be open to that humility and the possibility that you could be wrong. If you can't open up to that, at least in the way that, dude, and you guys did so well too, you and Dama, when you kept on showing, what was it? You said, just for the sake of our argument, how we can use what we've just established as, like, whether it was the cogito or whether it was, you guys, like, Chris was doing well with just talking about structure. But I was waiting for him to drop the data part of it, and he didn't get to it. But then you came in at the end and dropped in data. But no one made the connection of data logic as maybe a replacement for transcendence.
Well, I mean, they're like equivalent, essentially.
They are, and it's probably more clear-headed to go in the data logical direction than the transcendent. But transcendence definitely connects in like if you stay there and keep trying to find the more fundamental reduction.
I don't know, man. I'm poetic enough to be willing to cede to transcendence. Data logic is transcendent. Like, there's no doubt about it.
There's no doubt about it as the basis of transcendence that accords any of that ineffable quality that we all experience that seems so mystical and difficult to English, that once you get down to it, it really is just like you're looking at like an impossible object, like a Penrose triangle or some Escher staircase type thing. And the fact that we can imagine that's actually what I realized in terms of my own kind of path into data logic, was that because I had already accepted that imagination was predominantly one of the major problems in terms of communication,
Mhm.
people imagining certainty where really just incomplete information was ideologically possessing ourselves.
Mhm.
Like that is the cause of most disagreement. That what we could just call the truncated frame of reference that doesn't question its, I guess, contents as being irrelevant
I think
to
that's a clever name, man.
the truncated frame of reference.
Yeah, dude.
It works if we keep that theme going, because it's an easy trunk as well to fit into.
Mhm.
Like all ideas are of that same basic shape and size, and even probably we could say weight. Like it's enough that the pragmatic mind can hold and not feel like overweighted or out of balance with itself.
I mean, I think the pragmatic mind always objects a little bit to the supposition of something that transcends their ability to comprehend it currently without being impossible to comprehend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, like if they have to
Like
believe.
pragmatics tend to default to the position that things that look like they can't be known simply cannot be known, and that's why they use the
Yeah,
pragmatic definition of truth.
dude, totally. And wouldn't you say that like what ultimately kind of reorients once you data logically align is there's like kind of a deeper grounding that pragmatics can have, but
Mhm.
not in the way that most people would pragmatically assert. Like you
Exactly,
can
dude.
only be so
Absolutely.
pragmatic about like a small hierarchy of values that plugs into the transcendent layer of reality without over embellishing its edges,
Mhm.
which is why I geometrically represent it as a octahedron. Like
I don't know. I think that's. I'm thinking probably going to include that as a diagram in the new paper.
I think it would be helpful.
You should work specifically for like filling out, because I want more of our diagrams in the paper in the new version of the paper.
Yeah, man.
You should work on churning a couple of them out in the near future.
I need to this week. That's why I'm like just trying to get some memes and quotes and whatnot out to get the old creative juices flowing.
Yeah, no doubt.
Because I do hit like weird dry spells where I'm just like
Dude, I'm like that most of the time with motivation. I just can't do it.
we have to figure that part of ourselves out because it is a drag, man.
I know. It's like I'm the most disobedient son of a bitch, man.
Even to ourselves, right?
Yeah, especially to myself, man.
I don't have to listen to me. It's me.
Yeah, I'm a dumbass. What am I talking about?
Why should
Just
I have
do what
to?
I want. Yeah.
It's such a funny dichotomy to have internally.
Yeah, man.
Oh God. Yeah, dude, I'll definitely work on some more diagrams and whatnot because those are always meditatively fruitful in just the formalizing of it with you.
Definitely. Hey, you know what you should also do?
Hmm.
You should try to get the other guy who makes the integral theory diagrams.
Yeah.
You should collaborate with him to make one that is like fine-tuned to our idea, even if he doesn't really want to. You should just try to get him to.
I think I need to, man. But I really do think that you need to be there because he's really logical. It's just
we can do that. We should definitely organize that.
I'm too metaphoric when it comes to how I have to express a lot of this.
You should be inviting people to this server, dude.
I'm gonna, dude.
Because this is where they can talk to me. Like, it's not somewhere where I have to where I can delay responding. You know what I mean?
Definitely.
Because I'm the worst. We both know I'm the worst.
Yeah, you're good at that. Good at being the worst.
I don't know how I do it. I'm just like, nah. I'll do it tomorrow, and then tomorrow goes on endlessly. So
it's magnificent procrastination. If I've ever seen some.
Yeah, it's unparalleled, I would say.
Unparalleled. Oh, dude, I think it's because harkening back.
I'm gonna. Sorry, go.
Well, yeah, harkening back to when you first shared, almost like the flat evaluation of a multiversal perspective. How there's no real reason to hold the current universal construct that we inhabit higher than any other.
Yep.
When you were able to share that kind of vantage point with me, it communicated more in terms of intuition and that visceral connection to the whole structure of DM theory than almost any other points early in the, I guess, coming to terms with these ideas. For me personally, when you shared that with me, I was like, oh yeah, I forgot that we could sit up there like that, because it's very above the concerns of human, just human concerns. There's not a lot that can scrape.
Dude, I swear I've heard you make that exact stumble before.
Yeah, go on, tell me more.
No, I just think I'm almost certain in one of our previous recordings, you approach the end of your sentence the same way with the term human concern, and then you do the exact same thing as you just did then.
Oh man, that's good to hear. You're catching my patterns then.
Yeah, dude.
Which, I mean, when you really boil down to it, like you can start to see how you yourself, I myself, become this repetitious pattern algorithm, not so free as we thought.
I mean, we've been swapping the our ideas of what the algorithm is for quite a while now.
I'm starting to feel a very familiar repetition with it, though, where it's not boring. It never gets boring.
Oh, dude, I know, right?
It's always, because it's like a movie that you love, that you rewatch, and you keep gaining new folds into what it means.
It's like a movie that you watch that's shot from a different angle or with a different character every time.
There you go. That's even better. I love that way of thinking about it. And every character, like, you eventually come down to more and more detailed perspectives within the environment.
That would be the best fucking set of movies ever.
Wouldn't
like
it?
a movie where you could watch all of the different characters' point of view through the whole movie.
Yeah. And it keeps resetting to where you ultimately get to like an ant's point of view. Or
yeah, dude, that would be so dope.
Something within nature watching the same event and just moving on with its life, and then hitting fast forward to I don't know, the end of the universe.
Yeah, no, after you've looked at it from every angle, it just it resets, and then it's it zooms out a little bit and goes kind of quickly, and all of a sudden something comes along and blows up our solar system, and then the story swaps to something else.
Yeah, the sun just expands to the orbit of the Earth and on into another galaxy to find a new movie to make.
Yeah, dude.
It's interesting. And to see that explosion be maybe something like panspermia or something like
that. Yeah, definitely.
It'd be fun.
I agree, yeah, definitely. So you're talking about metaphysics, right?
Yes, and that is definitely something that I catch metaphysical misdeeds, if you will, like a bloodhound.
Mm-hmm.
And
this would be like Shadow Snark, for instance.
Shadow Snark, anything that has some aspect of our psyche that is still shadowed from our conscious ability to admit or acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that's a great definition.
It's pretty straightforward right there. And I haven't thought that yet, so that felt nice. Mm-hmm. As I was sharing with Harmony my kind of distillation of what that whole last video that you just posted to YouTube, I said what I catch people doing is, instead of looking down at the ground, they look up into their imagination and start postulating why it is that you can't be standing where you're standing, because they're not standing there. And that would, at least in the Paragon, if we assign any kind of charity to their position, if they're engaged in a genuine dialectic, they're on an outer point, maybe the top point, maybe the left or right point, but they're not inside the paragon with you. And let's just say, body-wise, your feet are on the bottom with data logic, your head is at the top, and that's the ability to be pataphysically aware of yourself, or the metacognitive in psychological terms, to think about your thinking in an accurate and deductive way, so that you can look in any direction and see where a person is comporting their arguments from, and then essentially keep trying to pull them by the ankles, because that's where your hands are, essentially. Pull them down to stand on the ground with you. They won't be on data logic, but they'll be in some presuppositional nonsense that is at least looking at you eye to eye, because you are according them all the dignity and respect that human to human interaction should. It's just, this happens to be one that is, the axioms are not just self-proven. If you follow the spiral of logic in the exercise that you're presenting, it really just does, it does something that only a shut down imagination can accept. So you have to go third eye blind. You can't imagine a new postulate as to why data logic isn't. You have to law of excluded middle it, essentially.
Yeah, you have to check and like really check and say, okay, it turns out not, you can actually like work out an answer to this specific question.
Well, if you can, then it's just going to dig what we all are conceiving as data logic deeper into a more truthful absolute space.
Yeah, that's exactly my point. Is like you just have to get them to actually take seriously what you're saying and walk through it.
Right.
Because when you do, it's actually undeniable. You cannot refute it. I've never seen anybody do it, even actually come close. Like the central points are so, they're just, it is almost the pinnacle of ridiculous behavior to try to oppose the central tenets of DM theory.
I think that's a fair way to put it.
It's just so ridiculous because they're such basic axioms, like data exists and logic exists in the sense that I define them.
Yep.
You just can't argue with me. It cannot be done. You know what I mean?
It cannot be done. And I think the more that we bring humor into that space and levity and try to make jokes that are I'm thinking there's going to be a blend between like the profundity of wisdom and the just slapstick dick and fart joke humor of adolescence or something like that. Like there's going to be some magical vibration that happens in the way that
vibration, eh?
Yeah, so let me share a different way of looking at what I mean by that. Shoot, what's the name of it? It's a different type of flow of water where it looks like it's frozen. It is called laminar flow or laminar, Laminar flow. And it basically just looks like if it's water coming out of a pipe, it looks like the water is frozen, but you could put your hand under it and the water moves as regular. It's a really interesting, so it looks like a static image of water, but it's a video.
Interesting.
Yeah, if you look at it, it's that's what I mean by vibration. It's like, it's not, I mean, it is ostensibly in physics like that, but maybe that would be the overlap of static dynamic, what we can tap into with an actual flow state.
You're talking about vibration. I don't know why vibration is the correct word though.
It isn't. I don't like the word either. It makes me get
like what
annoyed.
You mean is like, what would you say? Accordance, probably.
I mean, accordance or alignment is my preferred default. But one thing that happens with me, probably because I'm creative, is I get
A little bit of a memer.
Yeah, I get a little bored
And
sometimes with saying the same word.
Inject your new age bullshit into it.
Sometimes, maybe that's... yeah, just put some nonsense in there because I'm tired of saying the correct thing or something like that.
That's an interesting one.
It's a weird one. It's a trickster joker thing to do.
Well, it's also like you can justify it as kicking the tires. That's how Chris always justifies it. Like, really, I know he's just memeing. He's just memeing. It's fun, talk some fucking shit about the thing we both think is true. Because he knows that I'll fight with him about it.
Yeah. I like the way you guys fight about it, too. You guys still have all the fire as you've had since I first met you guys.
Yeah, we both have fun doing it. It's like a little bit of a game, competitive enterprise. Yep. Even if that's one of the games we play is okay. We both know that the thing we're arguing about is ridiculous. One of us is just definitely right, but let's argue about it to see who can use rhetoric better.
That's what I want to try and start doing too, because ultimately, I think that's going to be a lot of the fun of what data logic can kind of open our minds up into. Is like, how can we use... it's like chess, essentially. Like, how can we play this game as creatively as possible and get each other in checkmate faster and faster?
If you focus on staying consistently data logical, you basically guarantee yourself the checkmate win.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, how well can you move towards the checkmate? Because even if data logic centers you on checkmate, if they play their cards right, you stalemate. If you play your cards really badly, maybe they even win.
Dude, that is a really good way to think of it. You know what the shadow does too? And this is something I picked up from Mr. Nobody, the movie. Zugzwang. It's a move in chess where the only move is to not move. And it's...
you can't not move in chess.
Look up Zugzwang. I forget the actual rules of it. But it's like where that's the only move, because if you were to move, it puts you in danger or something.
It's a situation.
Or puts you in check. It's a situation, yeah. So it's probably a very rare time where it's applicable.
What? But chess, you can't pass.
I don't think you can pass, but I think that it's a weird type of...
It's German. Is it German chess?
I think it's just a weird type of stalemate, is what it kind of amounts to.
No, but you can't pass.
Are you looking it up right now?
Yeah.
So does it have anything about
it doesn't say anything about the fact that you can't pass.
Does it have any situation of where, your king is in this position and the opponent's pieces are arranged in a way that if you were to move in any position, maybe you have only one move, and the one move that you could move into puts you in check or checkmate. So the only thing you can do is not move, because you can't move into check or checkmate.
Let me see.
It's a very rare thing, I think. Rare situation. I'm thinking maybe...
okay, no. Zugzwang means when the player who has to move can't do anything without making an important concession. So, for instance, if you're using your king to defend a piece, and you have been put in such a position where you can move, but to move, to do what you have to do, you have to step away from the only thing you've got left. Ooh. Which means you're giving it up, basically.
Yeah, that's the position I find most precepts in 95% of the time. Zugzwang would they can't, because it would be...
That's interesting. Right? It's a really good example.
It's a very chess example for sure. Chess nerd example. But yeah, that would be how I characterize the way that people are interfacing with their arguments and DM theory's position, because one way or another we do attach to our identities and our egos and the things that have led us to survive, our experience, the wisdom we've accumulated, so on and so forth. But ultimately, like there's a Bible passage coming to mind about like I don't even know if it's a passage, but maybe just a mix of all these Bible ideas that you can get into the kingdom of heaven, all things behind. What is it? The rich man through the eye of a needle type idea. It's something along the lines of, if you can sacrifice everything, your family, your identity, your job, your bank account, in terms of concepts, you don't actually have to physically do any of this, but just make all of that stuff irrelevant. Everything that's important to your identity, put that aside for the sake of a genuine dialectic. You will come to a datalogical position, whether you like it or not. But if you can't do that, you're zugzwinging in some way, because there's some question that you have as to whether or not you can or should or shouldn't give up the packets of information that you're still clinging to.
Yeah, I get you, man.
So, yeah, that's my basic take on that whole conversation, because it's perfectly understandable as far as I can tell. And I do think what you're talking about in terms of the transcendent being capable of at least reducing to the neurochemistry and hallucination mechanisms of the human brain, I don't see how that's controversial or not at least a nice basis to start the conversation from. If it doesn't end up being that, or if it ends up being that plus something else, the dialectic will reveal that. But you can at least constrain the parameters of what the conversation kind of needs to be concerned with by keeping it in that field, rather than often to, well, I got the emerald tablets of Thoth, and I channeled the machine elves, and any number of type visionary states that people get into, where they start to unnecessarily attach what they've experienced, which is transcendental as fuck, and what in some ways have resulted in an enlightened point of view. Those things are very hard to take away from people without them going, but I experienced it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, it's kind of like, it's the classic blindness of emotional attachment,
Yeah, dude, we mentioned that last time, huh?
Of course, yeah.
So yeah, I guess I am pretty over concerned on that point, because that might have been a place where I hung up for a long time. And I am trying to find a way to be gentle with emotions. I don't know why. I like to regard emotions as switches, but yeah, if I can find a way to like, would you regard DM theory as like a harsh truth?
Not at all.
I don't think it is either. But there's something harsh about like embracing it.
No, there's something harsh about saying to people, it's no longer permissible to have your delusions.
Oh. Yeah, what is it? Daniel Dennett? There's no polite way to tell someone they've dedicated their life to a
Pretty much,
delusion.
Man. Mm-hmm.
Damn it, yeah. And I do think that's pretty true. I guess my over focusing on politeness might be causing some obsession in me.
It's because you're an agreeable son of a bitch.
I sure am, dude. I'm gonna work on some disagreeability, even if it's just make believe for me. I'm gonna try to pretend to be more
That's the
disagreeable.
ticket, man.
It is, right? You're actually holding it very tactfully too, in my opinion, because you do hold a non-perfect and achievable standard. Because it's not like you don't lose your temper and get short-tempered, essentially, with people.
More than short-tempered. Sometimes I'm an outright dick.
Yeah, outright dick and asshole or whatever, like some insult there, and like I look at that and I'm like, well, thank goodness for that. At least he's not like over here, Mr. Perfect, rubbing it in our face.
Yeah, dude. I think flaws are what make you human.
I do too. I really, really love that idea. Well, yeah, man, I think that's about all I got to say on the chat.
That's okay. We got anything else to talk about? We probably do.
Yeah, I mean, we could move into Reloaded and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
We can start to at least plan out some ideas there. And if you have any like specific ideas about what you'd like me to throw images and
I
graphics
would
to,
probably like a better version of the. Like maybe you could do, like I don't know how to say it. Like the paragon, you know how it has the like
yeah,
sphere at the center.
yeah,
And if the sphere is like the datalogical constant, because it's the
Mhm.
neutral data point, which is like the subjective approximation of the datalogical constant, right? Like maybe you could
totally,
like make that distinction there, and then like do another connected image, right? Which is like, you know how we have like the three ringed circle for the omniverse. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah, remake that, except more like a sphere,
yeah,
and actually have like make the sphere more descriptive in terms of like illustrating what the realm entails in terms of like, you know what I mean, like symbolizing it insofar as you're able.
the one at the very bottom.
Well, like pataphysics, for instance, right? You can draw imaginary things, right?
True.
Like, for instance, paradoxical objects.
Yeah,
And it's
'cause
like, that's pretty clear. That actually makes a good example, you know what I mean? It's like, oh,
yeah,
these are things that you can think of, but that don't make any actual sense, you know?
right. And I mean, you can even print them out like with a 3D
Hmm.
printer and have a
Yeah,
physical
and so,
object of it.
like, you can try and, like, figure out how to symbolize, like, a pada game, you know what I mean? So, like, and in the
Dude,
sphere, we want to, like, make each of the realms sort of, like, signify the difference in phenomenology that we're talking about, if you know what I'm saying.
yeah, I think I'm following that. So let me
Because I
see.
think that would be amazing, right? Because I definitely intend to use the diagram of the paragon. That's amazing, and I would love to work like a bit more closely on it to see if we can make any improvements. Because I love what you've done so far. But it
Yeah,
would be
it kicked
awesome
the
if we could
tires.
get, yeah, it would be awesome if we could get a connected like diagram of the dialogical constant as, you know, the thing that we already have done, the three ringed omniverse,
Yeah,
but as a sphere and much more descriptively designed.
dude, that'd be cool. I would love to do that. Let me see.
Because like the 2D representation we have is really good. I love it. You know what I mean? Where we have
Yeah,
the pixel and it like directly like details the inner structure, but you know, like it's a sphere. First of all, that is more accurate. You know,
it is.
and it just seems, I don't know. It's hard to say, you know, but like it just seems more appropriate to have it.
Yeah, two
Because
2D.
pataphysics, like we said, right? It's like it's a hard to understand term, and for people who are like you, who understand the world visually, we want to make our visual metaphors clear. And I think the pataphysical objects, like, you know,
Like the
that,
Penrose
yeah, like
triangle
this,
and
yeah, the self-drawing hand, stuff like that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? It's like it's obvious. It is obvious what that is.
yeah. And that really makes the point in terms of how we take things
and
like
then,
that.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in metaphysics, the metaphysical realm, we can figure out how to symbolize superstructures, supersets, you know what I mean? Like the thing that is like the underlying formula for everything else somehow being like the fount of potentiality or whatever. You know, I don't really know exactly what we're going to do for that, but like the point is we can make like a good effort to just
Install as much as we can. In one image.
Make it intuitive what we mean as much as possible.
How would you fit do you remember I'd used the tree of life diagram before with the skeleton behind it, and it's like in the Vitruvian man form. I called it
I think
reality mechanics or something like that.
You'll have to send it to me. I don't quite remember.
You said that it was spot on more recently.
Oh, I think so.
It's the one where it's like up through the center. It shows data at the bottom.
Yep.
Information.
Yeah, we could work a little bit more on that and maybe integrate that with the Paragon structure a little bit more as well, don't you think?
That's exactly what I think it is, because that when I was describing how your arguments are, I think that's what you're doing, and I'm almost certain that's what I'm doing. But
definitely,
you're doing something that is way less complex than I think I am.
Well, I think that there's like a lot of like gems that you get from the complexity that I don't access properly. Like,
well, you don't even need the complexity, is what it.
Well, I mean, I suppose,
be.
but also like as someone who I'm a writer, you know what I mean. I'm also a poet. Like I like that element, and like people like you and David Moore are doing something that I'm just not quite capable of. You know what I
think
mean?
it's that we can court confusion.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it, man. That's really interesting.
We dance with our confusion in one way or another, and you
dance with your demons, not for them, right?
Right, and I'm not even sure that you would be enhanced by a dance like that. Like I think it would just be like, that was nice, but I'm gonna go sit back down over here. I don't know,
man. I feel like if for instance, if David Moore were a proponent of DM theory, he would be powerful as one.
He would be amazing.
And if I could embody that a little bit more, I would love to.
I think you do, to the extent that when you at least go on a nice circumambulation of a topic, like your more human topics, let's say, those seem to me to be what you are admiring in David Moore. And I don't think you're doing anything.
But he can do that. He can do that for the arcane.
Oh, see, I haven't read enough of his stuff, actually.
Oh, you should, dude. It's fucking
I read
great.
one recently where I was like, oh, that was awesome. I forgot what it was about.
Yeah, man. Oh, dude, I fucking often after I'm finished reading a piece of his, I'm like, this is just amazing. Like, it's so well written.
Right.
He's like one of the best writers I've ever read.
That's so cool to hear, man. I will give him more attention, because I every time I do stumble into Quora, like he's one of the ones that pops up. You and him.
Dude, I'm keen to get him on the server. He's just fucking patchy. I mean, he does work, but you know.
Yeah, I'm sure that you make time. Like I didn't think I was gonna make as much time as I've been making, but
that's the thing, man. It's been so productive.
It really has.
I'm listening to one of our other conversations just before.
What do you think?
I think it's the one I left, and then you and DM talked for a while.
Oh yeah, dude, I've been meaning to listen to that.
I haven't actually put it up yet. So.
Oh, okay. I wanted to know how it came out, actually, because
definitely.
It's one of these ones where.
Well, see, I have like a bunch of recordings now, but we have a bunch up. So what I'm doing is I'm like releasing them much more slowly, so that even when we have lulls in terms of like when I can't get on, or when other people aren't recording or stuff like that, we still have stuff going up on the YouTube.
Yeah, it's good, man. Gonna have like 100 uploads like in a couple of months.
Yeah, dude, definitely.
It's so interesting though to me, because what I've noticed in myself from listening to the last chat that we had about like faith and belief, and I think it was the architecture of
belief.
That one, yes.
Yeah, that one was fucking awesome.
That one was so therapeutic for me, man, where I was like, after I realized that you put it up, I think I introverted a bit because I didn't come on for a bit. And like, I was obviously, I was public with everything that I wanted to say. But I also felt vulnerable or exposed when I listened to it. I'm like, oh shit, I didn't realize I was being so open or candid about certain things. And because I trust you, and I trust like the way that we talk, and there's just no reason for me to hold back. And
Yeah,
I
of
don't
course.
regret anything that I said, but it's just, oh wow,
It was surprising, right?
yeah, surprising. Where I'm like, I'm being a real open book again. Because
Yeah.
once I got married to Harmony, it was like I started to learn to be less of an open book, because I used to just spew shit to anyone who would listen, and I didn't care if they were listening. I just would talk. Now I have to be actually heard in order to continue talking. Otherwise, I just won't bother. It's weird. Like, I turned off my open bookness, and when I'm in the right mood with the right people, the open book part of me comes right back out without me realizing it. So, yeah, that was one of those realizations that I had just from listening to our old video or one of our uploads.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I think like they're excellent in terms of of being. Go away. Stop it. She's whipping me with shit. She
I
wants
bet.
She wants me to get up so we can go shopping.
No, you should.
Nah, man. God damn it. All right.
I encourage you to spend as much time with her as you possibly can.
I'll throw a pen at you.
Are you man. You guys are throwing coins at each other?
Nah, I threw a pen at her because she's whipping me with shit. You don't bite me. God damn. Alright, man.
Alright, brother.
I might go.
Yeah, you have a good night, or what day, whatever it is for you.
It is evening. 4:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, and I've got 12% battery left, so we're good, man.
Alright, dude.
Dude, take care.
Catch you later, man.
Later.
Thank you for listening. Like, share, subscribe, and join us in the Nameless Debates Discord. We hope to see you there.